Okay, so we've got our background set up. Now we want to add some controls that will make our app actually do something. So we're going to be adding some buttons to our stack, and buttons can be clicked on by the user. So make sure you're in edit mode here. So if you remember, edit mode allows you to make changes to your stack. Make sure you're in edit mode. Grab a button from the tools palette. So that's a push button here. It's the top control on the left hand side. Drag one of those, drag it out and just drop it anywhere you want on your stack. And what we're going to do now is we're going to set some properties of our button. So I've still got the property inspector open here, and I'm just switching to basic properties. You can see at the top here that I'm looking at the button. So just always make sure that your property inspector is showing you the control you're interested in. So here we're looking at button. If you need to, go to the object menu and choose the object inspector. So if you've got this closed, go to the object menu and choose object inspector, and you'll see that you're looking at the button here. Now there's a few changes we want to make to our button. You can see here it's grey, it's quite small, it doesn't have a picture on it. We're going to change all of these things just by setting the properties of our button. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to give it a name. We want to name all our controls. We've named our stack, we've named our cards. We also want to name our buttons because later on we'll be referring to them in code and we want to know what we're talking about. If this was just button 1 or button 2, then if we had 100 buttons we'd forget which one we were talking about. So we want to give them sensible descriptive names. So we're going to call this one Tiger, and we don't want to show the name, so we're just going to untick show name, and we know exactly what we want, what size we want our button to be because we know how big our images are. So to set the size of the button, we go to basic, we change from basic properties to size and position, and we want the width and the height both to be 125. And what we can do is we can just drag this and drop it wherever we want on our stack. So I'm going to put it down here. So this is going to be our tiger button. We also want an elephant button and a monkey button. And rather than having to drag out and create our button every time, I'm just going to copy and paste. So I go to edit menu and I choose copy objects. You can also use the keyboard shortcut if you want. Then to create it, I do paste and it'll appear directly on top of the first one. So I want to move that. And then I want a third button, so I'm just going to paste again. Again, it appears directly on top of this one, so I'm just going to put it over here. Now at the moment, all our buttons are called Tiger. We want them to have unique and descriptive names, so when we refer to them in code, we know which one we're talking about. So select the second button, and we're going to change the name of this one to Monkey. And then select the third one, and we're going to change the name of this one to Elephant. So you should now have Tiger, Monkey, and elephant. So now what we want to do is we want to put an image onto each of these to show which type of animal it represents. So we're going to do the tiger first. So select your tiger button if you need to. Open up the object inspector from the object menu. And this time we're going to go to the icons and borders pane. And this lets us choose images to use as icons on our buttons. You can see there's also a highlight icon, there's a disabled icon, which is the one that's shown if the button can't be pressed. There's different options here, but what we're going to do is we're just going to set the icon. So click on the picker and make sure that in the menu at the top you're on this stack. Again, there are some built-in ones that you can choose, but we want to use one of the images that we imported. Now this is our tiger button, so we want to choose the tiger icon, and you'll see that he now appears on our button. We'll then do the same for monkey. You'll see here when I switch, the property inspector switches to show me the properties of the button that's selected. It's already on icons and borders, so just choose the picker for icon. This will be our monkey, and we'll do the same for the elephant. So now we've got our 3 buttons with their icons set on them. But you'll see these have got a sort of a grey background on them. They don't look very nice. We actually want them to have a transparent background. So what we'll do is we'll select our tiger button. We'll come back to the basic properties. And we're going to change the style from push button to transparent button. So a transparent button will have a transparent background, but it will still show the icon for you. And we also want to turn off the border because we don't want it to have a border when it gets clicked. So we'll go to icons and borders and we'll set the border width down to 0. And then we'll do the same for the monkey. So in basic properties, change the style to transparent button. And in icons and borders, set the border width down to 0. Then select the elephant, do the same again in basic properties, change the style to transparent, go to icons and borders and set the border width down to 0. So this is looking pretty good. We've finished the UI for our app. And if we switch into run mode here, so if we go to the tools palette and switch to run mode, we can now interact with our app as if we were a user. So edit mode lets us make changes and run mode lets us interact. So now if I click on one of my buttons, you can see that they're there and I can click on them, but nothing happens. And that's because we need to add some code to our app. So we're going to do that next. So that's the end of this step. If you're working in a pair, switch over and don't forget to save your work.